Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Autogefühl. Today with me AJ and Jonas. It's fresh, it's cool, it's colorful. It's the new VW T-Roc. I know what you're thinking. Why do we need another SUV in the world, AJ? There's already so many. I know, I agree with you, but this is more of a crossover, compact, coupe type SUV. And it's pretty interesting. First impressions would be that, okay, this is more of a design-focused car. But trust me, there's a lot more going on underneath. So join me today as I test this car on-road and a teeny little bit off-road as well to see if it's really important, yes or no. Are you interested? Let's find out. Come on, let's go. Wait a minute. Oh my God. Jonas, do you think we can make it up this hill? I think the new T-Roc is pretty much a big departure from the standard VW design language. Yes, it does have quite a lot of the similar design elements, but it's, I think, a very fresh look, very similar to the concept car that we saw a few years ago. The front is accentuated by this very large grille with the two-dimensional VW logo. And that's because this car comes with front assist and lane keeping assist as standard across all variants, which is a really good step forward. There's a chrome frame which runs along the top of the headlights as well as below this and frames around the front of the car. The front bumper is also fairly rectangular and square. It's got a very macho-like stance. I really like this section of the bumper. If you opt for the optional LED lights, they are optional on all trims. You get this LED DRL, which is, you know, in this what shape is this? I don't know, polygonal shape over here, which is like a nice frame around this this fake air vent over here. If you don't go for the LED lights, then you just have a horizontal strip of light over here for the indicator. Fog lamps over there, and this is a skid plate, a bash plate. This doesn't come as standard on the base variant, but it does come standard on the style and the sport trims. The T-Roc is 4.23 meters long, it's 1.8 meters wide. It weighs about 1,300 to 1,450 kilograms, depending on the engine and drivetrain option. And it's been raised by a mere 2 centimeters off the ground as compared to the Golf. So yes, this is not a Polo-based SUV, this is a Golf-based SUV. This is on the MQB A1 platform, whereas the Polo and the Ibiza are on the MQB A0 platform. We have the world premiere coverage of the Seat Arona, which sits on the A0 platform, which is smaller than this. And pretty soon there's also going to be a new VW version on that platform as well. Most likely going to be called the T-Cross to replace the old Polo Cross. So because this is on the A1 platform, this is on the Golf platform, but it is smaller than a Tiguan and about 7,000 euros cheaper than that. And on our test car, this is the style trim. So the trims are the base. Then you have a Y with style and sport on either side. On style trim, you get a contrasting roof as standard, and you get a strip of chrome along the bottom. On sport trim level, you don't get a contrasting roof as standard. You can get one optionally, but you get a progressive steering rack. The wheels start at 16-inch steel wheels with a hubcap for the base trim. Then you can optionally get the 16-inch wheels, alloys for that. On the style and sport, the standard wheel is a 17-inch wheel. You can get optionally sizes of 18 and even 19-inch wheels as well. Our test car has 18-inch wheels. I think this is a good size for this car. The 19-inch wheels look nice, but they're going to hinder the comfort a little bit because there's very little rubber on those tires, or on those wheels. We have black wheel arches. They are not squared off. So I think, you know, looking at the whole side profile, the T-Roc is a little bit more coupe crossover-like rather than a full-blown SUV, like for example the Seat Ateca and the Karoq, Skoda Karoq, which are the siblings of this car. As we go further down the side, a very simple design line which runs through here, but I really like this design line which goes over the wheel arch to mimic that and just fades away over here. We also have one doing the same over the front wheel. So I think this kind of adds a little bit of a nice silhouette to the car, and when the sun is shining just right, has a nice play of light and shadow regions along the side. Contrasting roof with a roof rail, and the classic Volkswagen C-pillar, which looks very much like the Golf C-pillar, but it's outlined by this chrome strip and it gets fatter as it goes down. At the back as well, I think the T-Roc is very coupe-like. The roofline isn't that tall, you know, like the Ateca has a pretty tall body, and the Tiguan also has a pretty tall body, but this is still fairly sleek. I really like that. I like the fact that you get a little bit higher ground clearance, so you can tackle some rough roads. You also get the optional four-wheel drive system. We'll talk about that later on. But because it's not so tall, it still has a good center of, low center of gravity. And I really like this coupe line over here. What do you guys think? I think the back of the T-Roc is a little bit hit and miss. I do like the coupe-like roof line. It's very nice, kind of like what the Toyota CHR did, but I think this is a little bit more better executed. We have a spoiler at the top, of course just cosmetic. I don't think it's doing anything in terms of aerodynamics. Three-dimensional LED lights. The rear LED lights are standard across all variants, but you don't get LED lights up front as standard. The width of the car is emphasized by this little fold and crease that runs along the center of the hatch, which kind of adds that width to the car. Over here you have the VW badge, which if you flip over, raises the hatch. You can get an automatic tailgate as well. And this is the new badging scheme that Volkswagen is doing nowadays. We saw this earlier in the Arteon. T-Roc in big, bold, shiny chrome letters across the middle of the hatch. We have the optional 4Motion system. I'll talk more about that later on. It's basically a electronic coupling based four-wheel drive system. The rear bumper has a lip over here, which is, I would say, not really a problem. I usually don't like large lips at the lower bumper, because if you're trying to load heavy and large suitcases into the trunk, you know, you're gonna smack it into this large lip and possibly damage it. But I think this is not too bad. Parking sensors over here. You don't get parking cameras as standard. These are all options again. And finally, this section over here, you know, on these sides, I'm not so sure about. We have a reflector and a black fake vent over here, and down here we have fake exhaust tips. Now, first of all, I'm not a big fan of fake exhaust tips anyway, and I think the positioning of these tips are also quite awkward. I mean, exhausts are never really at the corners of a bumper, so meh, I wish they would have done something else about that. What do you guys think? Let me know. Put it down below. Our car does not get the optional keyless entry, so this is a regular key. You have the button to release the hatch. The key for the engine starting as well. The door opens pretty wide. It's not that large. Again, it's not a tall, not such a tall door either. At first glance, the window does seem quite small, but on the inside, it's very lively and bright, thanks to these happy dashes of color. Like on the door, we have this blue. There's also a strip of LED, which has the ambient light, so it gives you a nice feeling on the inside. But here's where the cost-cutting measures start to show. Hard plastics, hard plastics, hard plastics here as well. It goes on and on everywhere. Only here you get some fabric and some more plush materials, but all the switchgear is standard VW style stuff. This kind of feels a little bit more like it came from the Polo and not from the Golf, but I think, you know, Volkswagen has been pretty smart to position this car right dead set against the compact crossover segment leader, the Qashqai. And at the price that this car is offered, you know, around 20,400, 20,500, yeah, I think it's a compromise. On the inside, again, I really like the dashes of color. You have so many personalization options in terms of this dashboard color over here, which goes all the way across from the side air vents, around the instrument binnacle, through the dashboard towards the other side, and tees down through the center console as well. You can have a multitude of different color options. This is a slightly matte finish. You can also get some glossy finishes as well. And the steering wheel is standard VW steering wheel. Coming to the seats, here as well you have so many different options for the seats. You have the base, you have the comfort, and you have the sports seats. Right now we have only the base, but you have animal-friendly, sustainable fabric seat options, leatherette options, and there's a nice piping and stitching stripe of the color which matches the Ravenna blue, which is the exterior color. And overall it's a very fun, happy, youthful kind of place to be in. Manual adjustment for the height, manual adjustment for the reclining, and the lumbar support. Don't want to get the interior dirty. Getting inside is okay. It's not really such a tall SUV type body. It's only 2 centimeters off the ground higher than a Golf. Interior wise, you can also get more brighter colors, which I always prefer on the interior. You also get an optional panoramic sunroof, which helps make the car a lot more brighter on the inside. But sitting inside here, it kind of feels very similar to the Polo, but at the same time it kind of feels like the Golf because it's as big as a Golf on the inside. But these dashes of colors and you know, the instrument cluster, all of these are very Polo-like from the new generation. The steering wheel column, of course, can be adjusted completely for rake and reach, so you can find a comfortable seating position. The plastics around here are also fairly hard, and unfortunately you're not going to like this, but the top of the dashboard is also pretty hard. All Volkswagens usually have nice soft touch plastics on the top of the dashboard, but you know, I think T-Roc again is a bit of a compromise. You get these design and you get this technology, but I guess the target market who buys this car doesn't really care for such plastic things. And finally, if you look over there on the A-pillar, you see the little B. So this car gets the optional Beats audio system, which honestly, I'm gonna call myself a audiophile. I'm a self-proclaimed audiophile. I really like music. I've never been a big fan of the Beats audio system, and here it's so-so. So I would say maybe you can skip out on it, check it out first before you go for this option. Anyway, you come sit here and let's check out all the systems. So this has the digital dashboard. Now, I'm not so happy with this system. I don't think it does all the functions that you would want it to, and I think it's an option that you can skip. Check it out with your local dealership if you really need this, yes or no. But it gives you things like your telephone. You can check the audio settings, and now navigation, I'll come back to this later on because I'm not really happy with it. And assistance systems, like I said, this car has the lane assist and front assist as standard, so that's pretty cool. There's also a button on the steering stalk, which I'll show you in a minute, where you can alter that. It's over here. if you've already come out here, there's a button on the left stalk, which is a shortcut to go to the assistant systems. Apart from that, we have your driving data, which is fairly standard. It gives you consumption, the range, speed. It has a road sign recognition camera system, of course, because it has the lane keeping assist. So there is the camera cluster module and other driving data like your trip. And yes, so the navigation, well, you cannot have the map on this as well as on the infotainment system at the same time. And I think that's pretty stupid actually, because you want to have a large map when you want to zoom in and out and kind of see where you are and where you're going up ahead. And you want to have the map there to kind of give you directions in terms of, okay, in 300 meters you have to turn right, and you can see a small mini map as well. It's nice to have both, but you cannot. The minute you put the map on this, it disappears from the main touchscreen. You don't have anything here. And this is a bit too small for my taste. You know, it's not large enough, and at high speeds, this navigation system doesn't really work too well. Some of the lines for the roads are really fat, and if there's two roads next to each other, they're so fat that they overlap. And on the highway, when you have a cluster of like a spaghetti junction where you have multiple exits back to back, it's really difficult to find which exit that you have to take. Yes, you can zoom out and zoom in, but I'll talk more about this when I'm driving. I really don't like the navigation cluster. I think this was a good opportunity which they missed. And let's talk about the steering wheel for a second. Because of the 7-speed DSG, we have paddle shifters on the left and right. This is the windshield wiping stalk for the front and the rear windows. This is for the indicators and flash, and also the button for to jump to the assistant systems like I showed you. This is for your adaptive cruise control, to set, resume, to turn it on and off, set the distance with the car in the front, and change the mode between speed limiter and ACC. Volume control, and on the right hand side you have the navigation for your menus to go back and forth, up and down. This can also be used to zoom in and out, telephone pickup, voice command, track seek. And finally, this has a flat bottom, and the steering wheel is also heated. Now let's take a quick look through the dashboard. I really like the inlay. I really like these bright colors. I think this compensates for the lack of poor material quality, and that's my personal opinion. I know a lot of you guys will not be happy with this, but unlike the Tiguan Allspace, which I drove just literally yesterday, actually, check out that video, this doesn't squeak. You know, I was trying that out. That had squeaks and it had gaps along the infotainment system. This doesn't have that. This has a really good fit and finish. So this is what I expect from VW in terms of fit and finish. You know, nothing is squeaking. We'll come back into this a little bit later on. Down here, auto shut off for the engine, hazard lights, parking sensors. This has the park pilot assist. So this can parallel park and perpendicular park itself, as in it can steer the car. You have to throttle and brake. This doesn't have the rear view camera or 360 camera, so it's just the sensors, so I'm not going to show you guys that. Seat heaters, and this also has the steering wheel heater, so if you press this, both of these heaters will be on, and you can turn this off and on manually from the touchscreen if you want. Defoggers, vent control, circulation, right seat heater, dual zone climate control, you know the stuff, very usual. Down here we have the optional inductive charger, a couple USB ports, a 12-volt power socket. This is the 7-speed DSG gear console, and you can see the 4Motion badging over here for the all-wheel drive system. It's got a nice frame of chrome around the edge, standard. Now let's take a quick look at the driving modes. Because this is the 4-wheel drive, we also have snow mode, which is just a regular all-wheel drive mode. This tunes the throttle response, the gear, the steering, and the traction control to allow for the most grip in snowy road conditions. In the normal street mode, you have multiple options here actually. You have Eco, which is for economy driving, normal, and you have Sport, and an individual button to change the options. This car does not have DCC. You can get that optionally if you want, but as we'll find out later on, I think the suspension setup is spot on. Steering can be adjusted for normal and sport. This is the engine and drivetrain system, the way it does. The adaptive cruise control can be altered as well, so it can be a little bit more gradual and a little bit more abrupt, or depending on that. Air conditioning, if you want it to be economical or you want it to be effective. And last but not least, we have the off-road mode. So this is the standard off-road mode, but if you go here, this is the individual off-road mode, and here you can individualize things again for your steering, the drive, the four-wheel drive mode. In off-road mode, it'll be engaged all the time, up to I think around a speed of 30 kilometers per hour. And air conditioning, hill descent assist, hill hold assist, and yeah, that's about it. Finally, over here, you also get some free granola bars. But apart from that, a couple of beverage holders, which are kind of squared off, but there's a deeper one and a shallower one and a pretty small one. I don't know, do you put your bottle upside down there? I guess not. Electronic parking brake, auto hold, maybe some place to keep some loose change, and a extendable armrest like so. Doesn't have a ratchet, but it's really well damped. But if you put your arm at this level, it's going to fall down, so you don't really have a choice of height. But you have a cubby hole over here. Again, really good, solid build quality. The infotainment systems, you have a variety of options. This is one of them. You have the two knobs on either side. I always like that because, for example, in the navigation menu, you can use this knob to zoom in and out. It's very useful and handy when driving. Some hotkey buttons, touch capacitive on the side, digital DAB radio, FM, a Bluetooth telephone, your vehicle status, and you also have a Think Blue trainer, which helps you drive a little bit more economically. The navigation system, like I said, I don't like the fact that you have to switch between the two screens. You cannot have it both of them. I don't like the fact that sometimes these lines are too fat and the exit commands are really not present in the way that I would want them to be. You get traffic updates if you have connection through CarNet. You can put a a SIM card, and you can get Wi-Fi inside the car as well. App Connect, of course, is a crucial thing nowadays. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and MirrorLink. And you have the VW Media Center, some controls for your sound. You can put some images as well. You can use this system to control the air conditioning if you don't want to use the buttons down here for whatever reason. And some general settings for the car and the screen, and yeah, the usual stuff. Another place where I think VW has made the right decisions in terms of quality versus cost saving is the glove box. Yes, it's all hard and it's not lockable, but it's damped. I think this is it's a good option to have. It's quite large. You can fit several things. You have your CD player and a couple SD cards over there. Let's check out the back seat, if I can open the door properly. There we go. The door opens fairly wide, and the entry is also not that bad. You have a fairly large opening. The shiny blue inlay that we have in the front is not there in the back. It's just one panel of black, hard plastic everywhere. Padded armrest at least, but yeah, a lot of dummy buttons over here and just the window. Bottle holder, but let's take a seat inside. Please excuse my incredibly dirty shoes. I know I'm making a brand new car very dirty, I feel the pain. But okay, let's analyze the back seat. I have this seat set to my driving position. I'm 5'8" or 1.7 meters. Knee room is pretty good. Leg room, I can put my feet below the front seat, even though that's in the lowest position, so I don't feel too bad. The rear back is also at a good angle. It's fairly supportive, it's fairly comfortable. I have plenty of headroom, that's good. You do have the option of a panoramic sunroof, which should help make the cabin a little bit brighter. I think the saving grace are those bright colors up front, and if you have white seat upholstery, and even the top is a lighter color, so it's nice. Because these rear windows are not the largest, they're quite narrow because of the low roof line and the tall shoulder line. The windows are not the largest, so that definitely should help make the car feel a bit airy. A very small and very tight door pocket. Some air conditioning vents over here. There is no third zone, it's just the same as the front driver's seat. There's also a 12-volt power socket over here. A central transmission tunnel, unfortunately, but that's usual. Armrest with cup holders with adjustable separators, doubling as a ski hatch. Again, the blue stitching that we saw in the front seat is here. Isofix points as well. And finally, let's just check out the center seat to see how it is. Well, the bench is definitely raised in the middle, but it has a fairly nice contour in the back, so it doesn't hurt your bum. The backrest is a bit stiff because of the plastic cup holders on the inside. It's not the most comfortable. And now definitely my headroom is much less. If you're as tall as Thomas, then your head's probably going to be touching the roof in this case. But I think it's okay. It's somewhere around the same as a Golf. So in that sense, it's pretty good. We have the optional automatic tailgate. Up it goes. The button over there to bring it back down. Now, the coupe roofline kind of means that the loading area is a bit weird. There's a sharp angle raking down over here. Yes, the loading bay is quite flat. In this configuration with the seats up, it's 445 liters. If you put the seats down, it's 1,290 liters, which is actually class leading. But I mean, because of the sloping roofline, you know, it's a kind of impedes into the trunk space. The loading lip is fairly flat. There's a little bit of a lip over here, but I think that's okay because it prevents your luggage from sliding back too far. And the bumper doesn't protrude too far away, so loading heavy items into this, you know, you're not going to damage this too much. You shouldn't, at least. There's a board over here when you can get the optional spare wheel, but if you don't, you have a tire repair kit. And this has the optional Beats audio, so this is the subwoofer for the audio system. Unfortunately, there is no way to release the seats from back here. You have to do it in the front, or you have to remove this parcel shelf so you get better access. That's really easily done. It goes away. Then you have a switch over here to fold the seat down. Of course, you also have a ski hatch, but this is not a 40-20-40 type of ski hatch. It's just a 40 bench and a 20 bench. So that goes down, and then let's flip this over. I mean, it's not really too hard to reach this, so I guess it's not a big deal. But as you can see now, the loading area is really flat. The seats also fold relatively flat. So 1,290 liters should be enough for your lifestyle related activities on the weekend. All right, let's open the hood. There is no automatic gas charged strut. And as we'll soon see going forward, this car has been cleverly packaged in a way in terms of cost-wise, because you know, the average customer, the target customer for this car is not going to be really opening the engine bay and doing anything with it. So why have an expensive gas charged strut? Save money here, save money in other places, and spend it on the design and the technology and the chassis, which are actually pretty good. Anyway, let's go talk about the engines. It's fairly simple. You have 3 power tuning options. You have 115 horsepower, you have 150 horsepower, and you have 190 horsepower. And you have petrol and diesel engine options. Currently, there is no option or plan to have a CNG or a hybrid powertrain. So, for the petrols, it starts with a 1.0 TSI, which is a turbo 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine. That's the 115 horsepower. Then the 150 is the 1.5 Evo engine, which has active cylinder management, things like that. Check out my review of the Ibiza, where I've talked about that engine in detail. And the 2-liter TSI is the one which makes the 190 horsepower. Then you have the 2-liter TDI, Again, it's the same engine with the 3 states of tune, 115, 150, or 190. The 115 horsepower engines come with 6-speed manual and front-wheel drive as standard. The 150 can be had with the optional 7-speed DSG and the 4Motion electronic coupling Haldex-based all-wheel drive system. Then the 190 horsepower engines come with the 7-speed DSG and 4Motion as standard. We have a full separate video where we have looked in depth at the different trims and the colors for the VW T-Roc, but since we have a bunch of them parked over here, why don't we check some out? Now I have the brochure over here for the colors. First of all, the T-Roc has a Y type trim level, so the base variant doesn't have things like, for example, it doesn't have this shiny bash plate in the front, doesn't have any of the LED lights in the front either, and the base trim does not have a strip of chrome down here either. The wheels, for example, start at 16 inches steel with just a hubcap. Then on the Style and the Sport, which are the other two prongs of the Y, they both are pretty much of the same hierarchy, they have 17-inch alloy wheels as standard. You can also have 16-inch alloy wheels as an option for the base, and you can even go up to 17, 18, and even 19-inch wheels. The Style trim level as standard comes with a contrasting roof color, but the Sport does not have a contrasting roof color as standard. You can get that optionally, but the Sport trim level does get things like the progressive steering. So let's see, colors. This is our test car. It's the Ravenna Blue, very close to Thomas Blue. And all front lights are optional LED. They don't come as standard. The rear lights are standard as LED. Interesting. So you'll notice that here the daytime running lights are as a frame around this design element. But if we go further down over here, yeah, this is the flash red with a black contrasting roof. This is also the Style trim level. And over here we have a gray. This is the, let's see, I think this is the indium gray. And you'll notice that this doesn't have the optional LED lights. These are just halogen lights. So these look different over here. And the LED daytime running lights are down here with a fog lamp and indicator, but there is no LED DRL on this frame. It's just black. Anyway, you have a bunch of interior options as well. And you can spec the interior trim along the dashboard, as well as things such as the seat upholstery and color. So let's check out the interior of this car. Now, there is no red on the exterior, but you can get red inlays. You can really mix and match any permutation and combination you want. Even the ambient lighting is red in this case. A nice bold dash of red along the dashboard in the interior. The seats are leatherette with black fabric in the middle with perforations, some interesting red stitching and piping. Looks pretty cool. And you know, with all these permutations and combinations of colors and trims and the different kinds of interiors you can have, it has so much scope for personalization. No two T-Rocs will be exactly the same. Check out this one over here. This is the energetic orange exterior color with a contrasting black roof. We also have the orange inlay, which is very similar to the color on the outside along the doors, along the dashboard trim, as well as a red leatherette with a dusty silver color on the exterior. So, lots of color options. And let's just take a look at one last one. Over here we have the Kurkuma yellow, the same color as the launch for the Arteon. This also has the LED lights over here and here, fog lamps down there. This is also the Style trim level, so we have this bash plate, skid plate, and a contrasting roof. So, a lot of colors, a lot of options. This is one of the USPs of the T-Roc and a trend that is being followed by a lot of car manufacturers these days. Dual tone color schemes for, with a contrasting roof, lots of personalizations, permutations and combinations available. I think the next generation of car buyers really want to be able to personalize everything, and that's a big selling point for the T-Roc as well. we're getting out of the airport and driving out into Sintra. Special points for those of you who know where that is. I'll give you a hint, we were there very recently. But anyway, let's start talking about the car, the T-Roc. This is a very important car for the VW range. This is part of their SUV offensive strategy. They've released the new Tiguan, they released the Atlas, and they've now released the Allspace. So this is the next big player that they're betting big bucks on. Is it a winner, yes or no? Let's find out together. Let's start off with the assistance systems, because it's really great to see that as standard across all variants and all price ranges, you have front assist and lane keeping assist as standard, which is great, and you can access them very easily with the left stalk over here. There's a button at the end which gives you a shortcut to turning on your lane assistant and your front assist if you want. So let's keep it both on and let's try them out. So on the left hand side of the steering wheel, I have some controls for the adaptive cruise control. I have the button to turn it on and off, and let's turn it into on. And then I can select the mode. I can either have a speed limiter or I can have the ACC. And then I just drive up to a speed that I want, press the set button. Now it's set to 88 kilometers per hour. Let's put it up to 120, which is the speed limit at these highways, or rather now it's back down to 60. And with this button in the middle over here, I can set the distance I wanted to maintain with the car in the front. There's a little symbol down there which you can see, and I just let the car do the rest of the work. Don't have to worry about it at all. Let's get into the right lane. Speaking of that, to aid in your lane changing, there's also blind spot monitoring. That is an option, however. And yes, now that we're going, lane keeping assist is not really meant for you to let your hands off the wheel like I am right now, but it is just to test it. It doesn't work at speeds as low as 60. You need to be going a little bit faster for that to work. And the way it works is there's a camera on the top which scans the road up ahead and looks for the lines, and it tries to keep the car in the middle of the lane. And well, yeah, to know whether it's on or not, the lane keep assist symbol down here on your dashboard. Currently it's orange, which means it's not on, it's not running, but the minute it turns green, that means that it is on and I can actually test it out. But like I said, we're going too slow for that. Good things aside, let's start complaining about this car. There's a few things that I don't like. And one of the big things is this virtual dashboard, digital dashboard thing. I know that this is the lower end of the food chain in terms of product portfolio for VW, sort of. I mean, the Tiguan is bigger than this. It is more premium than this. So I cannot have the map on both my infotainment and on the digital dashboard. And that's kind of stupid, because trust me, we as auto journalists are really good at testing out GPS, because we travel all the time, we're driving different cars in different locations, and we really have to use the GPS. We rely on that heavily. And it has to be an easy system to use, because I'm talking to you, I'm filming, I'm driving, I have to be safe, I have to, then on the other hand as well, I have to test the car. So it has to be very simple, and it's not. And that's because if I put the map on this, then it's quite small. And I don't really get the exit notification. It just tells me which lane I need to be on, but it doesn't give me the full exit in 300 meters and a countdown, or if there's a roundabout, or it gives you a diagram for, depending on when you have to exit, so on and so forth. None of that stuff comes. It's just, tells you which lane to be on. I don't think that's that useful at all. And if I put it on here, then the map on the digital dashboard disappears. Now I get the navigation instructions, now I get the command. So now it's telling me keep driving straight for the next 5.1 kilometers. That's good. And having a map which is large, I think, is very important, especially because you want to see what's coming up ahead. You want to be able to zoom out really quickly. You want to be able to see, okay, how far do I have to go to turn around, so on and so forth, etc., etc. And that's really useful. So, and this screen is too small for that. It doesn't do it. So in the end, in terms of navigation usability, this screen, I don't think it's that useful, because if you go for the regular analog dashboard, then you still get the TFT screen in the middle, which will give you this information anyway. So I would say save your money. If you think that it's going to really help you with navigation, I don't think it does. But anyway, now let's talk about some more good points while we get on this really beautiful bridge up ahead. I don't know if you guys can really see that well, but it's the famous bridge here in Lisbon. The steering is good. It's a little bit too large. Like all Volkswagens, it's too large for my taste. But then again, it's a personal preference. I like a smaller steering wheel because I find that grip more confidence inspiring, a little bit more sporty. And this large steering wheel philosophy that Volkswagen follows, is across their range. Even the Polo I drove, as compared to the Ibiza that I also drove, had a larger steering wheel, which I don't really like. And this is the same case here. But you do have the option of getting the progressive steering. The progressive steering is standard on the Sport trim line. We're driving the Style trim line, so it is not, and this car does not get that as equipped. But even then, it's a very good system. Now we're in Sport mode, so the steering is a lot heavier. But again, because it's not progressive, there's a little bit of, it's not that sharp at dead center, but it's good enough to give you confidence on the highway. There is also the option of having a DCC, the Dynamic Chassis Control, but our car isn't equipped with that either, and that's a good thing because now I can really test the standard suspension setup. We're on this bridge, it's a really cool view, but at the same time there's a lot of separations. On bridges you have these road segments and there's always a strip of separation between these segments, and it's always like a clump, 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 clump. And I can already tell you right now that it's not that bad at all because the suspension is well balanced. It's stiff enough that it gives you good confidence, but at the same time it's supple enough that it's not really jarring on the interior and you don't feel the harshness of the road filtering in through the bodywork and into the cabin. We will try this out again. We will take it on some more rough road further down and we'll see if that continues there as well. But on the highway, at least at speed, the damping is sufficient. You can change the mode with this drive selector over here. You have Eco, Normal and Sport and an individual setting. In Eco, because we have the 7-speed DSG, the gearbox shifts up as soon as it can so that it keeps keeps the engine ticking at a lower RPM, and that helps to improve efficiency. The steering wheel is a little bit lighter than in Sport mode, of course. The throttle response is significantly dulled. We have the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel engine, the TDI, with direct fuel injection. This makes 150 horsepower in this state of tune. And I've been driving on some other roads before we started filming, and I noticed that, we are fairly familiar with this engine. I've driven this earlier as well. It's a little bit, the power band is in the mid, between 1,500 to 3,400 to 3,500-ish RPM. You should never really rev this engine out beyond 3,000, and definitely not beyond 4,000. There is no power up there, it just starts fading away. And that being said, on the highway, that works to its advantage because if you want to make a quick overtake, you just have to put a light dab of the throttle and then it just surges ahead and it's very swift in its action. But on some more fun, twisty roads, might not be the best because you want to rev an engine out higher and higher when you're on some nice twisty roads. Okay, oops, not this way. Well, there we go. The steering intervention there helped me out. But you also have normal mode. Because this doesn't have the DCC, the suspension is again remaining the same. So it's mostly the way the air conditioning, the adaptive cruise control, and the steering and the gearbox is how these things are tuned. The software adapts these components. So in normal mode, the air conditioning is much more efficient. It's much more effective. It's less efficient, much more effective. It cools and heats quicker. Of course, it burns a little bit more fuel as compared to the eco mode, but the steering is a lot lighter compared to this sport mode. It's very light. It's very easy to navigate in tighter city situations. So normal mode is what you would use in the city when you have to make a lot of turns and things like that. The throttle response, I guess, would be in the middle. It's a balanced response. It's not that swift and it's not that dull either. It's a good compromise between the two. Let us set the DCC now, sorry, the ACC, to check it out. So I'm traveling at 90, and now the lane keep assist light is also on, which means it should keep me in lane. Now if I try to veer off, there is steering intervention, which will, oops, there we go, see? Which will come into play. But if I want to change lanes and I use the indicators, then it knows that I want to change lane, then it gets deactivated, so it doesn't bother me when I'm trying to change lanes. The noise insulation is also really fantastic. I was driving the Tiguan just yesterday, actually. You guys should check out that video. We did a really thorough test. It was a really fun video, a really fun project. And I did say that I found that car had a little bit more noise, wind noise that is filtering into the cabin. But this car is a lot more, you know, hushed and quiet. I don't know how, if this is supposed to be positioned lower than the Tiguan Allspace, that this is wetter. Sorry, got a bit distracted. Somebody in front of me just slammed the brakes really hard. But yeah, I don't know how that it really works out, but it really is. And I was driving it at high speed on the highway before, and it was really quiet. The seats as well are really good. You have the option of having, yeah, I think this person is a bit lost. Maybe they need to get this GPS, or maybe they have a problem with their GPS. But anyway, the seats are also fairly comfortable. You have three choices. You have the base, you have the comfort, and you have the sport. Our seats are really good. And again, we always like leatherette and cloth rather than animal skin leather, genuine leather. So that way it ticks all the boxes. It's comfortable, it's supportive enough. It's got just enough side bolstering so that you don't get thrown out of your seat. So overall, highway mannerisms are fantastic. Before I forget, the navigation, you have multiple options. The 8-inch touchscreen is the maximum. And this system is always the one I like. You have the knob on the left and right. This one can be used for a multitude of different functions. In this case, for the navigation, you can use it to zoom in and out. You have volume control as well. And this brings me to the other point that I said there's a couple things I don't like. One was the fact that you can't have both the maps on both the screens. The other thing I don't like is this thing makes so many noises. It's really annoying. Every time you try to pinch, it makes a clicking noise. You zoom in and out, it makes more clicking noises, and you release it. It's just a lot of popping noises, and I tried to turn that off. I'm pretty sure, and I hope there is a way to turn this off. If there isn't, then I don't know. It's not something that I really like. It's a bit annoying. But apart from that, you can, when you put your hand up, the sub menu pops up, so it's easy to access. But yeah, overall, I think the T-Roc on the highway is definitely a serious mile muncher. It's got a low center of gravity because compared to the Golf, it's just 20 centimeters higher, so it's not really such a tall SUV, so it doesn't roll too much around these corners. You know, when you're going on the exit ramp or the on-ramp on a highway like this, it's still very composed. And even without the dynamic chassis control, the suspension is really well balanced. Now, let's take it out on some winding country roads and see how the car behaves when you push it a little bit. First things first, I feel a bit silly, but that clicking, popping sounds on the navigation, well, it's very easy. It's just the regular tones for the infotainment system. It's very easy to turn it off, and now I don't have that problem. So, as you can see, problem solved. Now, let us drive on some nice twisty roads. I was here last week. If you guys guessed earlier correctly, I drove the 6 GT on the same road, I drove the X3 on the same road, and there's some really cool cars here to come spot. There's an MR2 there right next to us. I saw an SLR McLaren just a couple minutes ago. Fantastic place to spot some cars. Anyway, Volkswagen T-Roc, show me what you can do. Let's put it into sport mode. So now the throttle response is a lot more sharper. The gearbox is a lot more sporty. It shifts down a lot sooner, holds the gear for a longer time. Throttle response is sharpened. The steering is a lot heavier, etc. So on and so forth. You know the drill. But this does not have the dynamic chassis controls. It's just the standard suspension setup. So let's see what we can do. Let me just change the there we go. So now we can have the speed on the thing. Let's put it into sport. Let's drop it down to second gear. Yeah, because it's the diesel, there is no power after 3,400, 3,500 RPM. You want to keep it between 2,000 and 3,400-ish. And right here is the sweet spot. This car also has the 4Motion all-wheel drive system, but the suspension is so well tuned. I mean, this is the Golf chassis, it's the MQB A1. It is not the MQB A0. And so this, even though the exterior is a Golf, I mean, the exterior is based on the Golf, the chassis and the suspension setup and the things like that. But on the inside, I think it's a lot more fresh. It's more similar to the Polo because of all these very funky interior color schemes and these LED inside lights for the you know, the ambience and stuff like that. But anyway, four-wheel drive for a car like this, I mean, it's a soft roader. Even this is not even a full-blown SUV or a compact SUV. This is more of like a really compact crossover urban runabout. So you don't really need a four-wheel drive. And this also has the electronic differential. When I say that, that's what they call it, but it's really just a way of with using the hydraulic modulator for this high generation of ABS. So if there's a slippage, it will break the wheel which is losing grip to send torque to the one which has more grip. Like any other traction control system, it's the next generation version of that. So, an old Porsche 911. So you don't really need a four-wheel drive system, even if you're going to go a little bit off-road. The extra ground clearance, you know, it's enough if you have front-wheel drive with this this differential. I'm also going to turn off the lane keeping assist because it's trying to interfere with me and trying to hold my line. Let's push it a little bit around these corners. Wow, I think the suspension setup is so well balanced. I mean, it's so composed. The tires are not making any complaints whatsoever. The engine, of course, if this is a diesel, so it's not the most sprightly. It sounds pretty dull, I think. You can hear the engine inside. You can hear the turbocharger whine a little bit. And it's not that terrible, but you can of course get the 1.5 Evo TSI, you can get the 2-liter TSI with 190 horsepower. So if you want something which is more fun around corners like this, those are definitely the options to go for. This 2-liter TDI with 150 horsepower is definitely a great all-around engine, but it probably isn't the most enthusiastic to drive. I'm stuck behind a really old Fiesta. I hope he lets me pass. It's really not that safe to overtake on these streets. Like I said, this is a very popular street for guys with some fast cars to drive in a fast way. Let's hope that he gives me some space to overtake him. But anyway, in this, let's talk about the gearbox. Let's put it back into sport automatic. Let's see how the system works here. I mean, I was driving it earlier and I noticed that it's fairly intelligent. It's always, you know, it shifts down, it blips the throttle when it does that to rev match. So it's pretty intuitive on its own. If you want to take full control, you can of course use the paddle shifters. Wow, there's a lot of lateral grip. There's no squealing of the tires. I'm going to put it back into manual mode. I mean, compared to the 6GT and the X3 that I was driving here just last weekend, of course you can't really compare it to that. But because this car is a lot wider, this car is pretty wide, and it's not necessarily that tall. It's a lot of really clever packaging that gives you so much of interior space, but it's not really a tall car. And it's got a nice wide track. Hello, Mr. Range Rover, what are you doing? Can I get past you? Yes, I can. Let's drop it down. There we go. Nope, now he wants to accelerate. Okay, well, make up your mind. Range Rover drivers, I tell you. But yes, I think this car is definitely a very fun car to have on these winding streets like this. Look at that ocean on the side, fantastic view. But if you plan to do something like this more often, then I would really recommend that you go for one of the petrol engines. Steering, progressive steering, you really need it. DCC, I'm gonna say you can skip it because this chassis is so well sorted. And look right now, I mean, the seats are also holding me in place. And these are all very simple things. It's not so extravagant, it's not overly complicated. It just has a regular suspension setup, which is really well tuned and really well damped. The seats are also not insanely complicated or whatever like that. And overall, just it's a simple way, it's a simple system. Steering is also pretty good. I would say you probably should go ahead and get the let's put it back into normal sport. You should get the the progressive steering rack. A progressive steering rack is not a steering by wire system. It just has some kind of a kind of like a gearbox. You can think of it that way, and that gearbox alters the ratio. So it's a progressive ratio. It's not a 1:1 steering input to the steering of the shaft, the final shaft at the rack and pinion in the front steering. It's more progressive. As you turn faster and more, the reaction you get is a lot quicker as well. So there's some kind of think of it like a gearbox. I'm not really sure exactly how it works. Different companies have different ways of doing it. Now we're on some really rough cobblestone streets. I've been on the street before, so I know this was here. A good place to test out the suspension. I mean, I've been giving it so many compliments, but how does it score in such a rough, rugged situation? Well, I think it's pretty good actually. I mean, of course, the 6 GTE that I drove last week here had air suspension and the executive drive package. Really impressive, expensive suspension setup. So that was obviously just wafting across the surface. But this really is not bad at all. This is a really good balance between comfort and stability and traction, and it's stiff enough to give you these fun dynamics. And now we're trying to squeeze through these little gaps here as well, and you can notice that because of the upright seating position and the the smaller dimensions, it's really easy to make your way around these nice little village streets. Let's change the mode now to normal, or let's go to eco. Let's see if we can salvage some fuel efficiency. Speaking of fuel efficiency, how about we go to there we go. Nope, not that. Is this the one? Nope, that's not it. Is that the one? Nope, that's not it either. I can do this. I'm a professional, I promise. There we go. It says 6.1 liters for 100 kilometers. Really? Wow, that's actually pretty good. I mean, it's a diesel, it should be lower. It will be lower. We haven't been driving for too long, just 84 kilometers for a couple hours now, as you can see, since start. And 6.1 liters for 100 kilometers. That's not too bad. I mean, I pushed it a bit over here. We were stuck in a little bit of traffic inside Lisbon. But this is a great car for city. Of course, that's what it's meant for. Highway, it does it really well. It's got a lot of sound insulation. It's very stable. It tracks well thanks to the Y-Track, and it's still got a relatively low center of gravity, and it's also very dynamic on these winding, twisty roads, which we're going to come to again right here. So let's put it back into sport mode. Let's put the gearbox into manual. Let's drop it down to 3, and let's push it. Yep. It loses steam after 4,000. You want to keep it between 3 and 4. Brakes really well. It doesn't give you too much of feedback, but it's got a progressive bite. It's supposed to be a crossover. It's 20 centimeters higher than a regular Golf, but look at it. It's so flat. It's so well balanced. I'm actually thoroughly impressed with the suspension setup. I really am. I think VW has paid attention to the things that matter. There's no tire squealing whatsoever. Of course, I'm not really pushing it that hard. Steering is good. I want a smaller steering wheel. I want a more progressive rack, but that's fine. You can get a progressive rack. Smaller steering wheel is just me complaining all the time. So apart from that, Engine, you can choose a faster engine if you want something like to have fun on twisty roads. You can also get a 6-speed manual if you want a pure driving experience. But all said and done, you know, it picks up speed really well, brakes really well, shift down, throw it in the corner, it tracks really well, it grips. 4-wheel drive system would help you if you needed to. I don't even get the notification from the traction control that I'm losing grip, because if I'm pushing it this hard, there is some slippage, it makes a little beeping noise and you can see the light flashing. It didn't even do that. Steering wheel response is great. It gives you such good feedback. This car is a lot of fun. I really was not expecting it to be like this. I thought it was just going to be another, you know, regular crossover like the C4 Cactus type thing, or, you know, like a Qashqai. The Qashqai drives really well as well, but I think they've paid attention to the things that matter. And I'm glad that I didn't take the DCC, because if a car drives well and it has DCC, I automatically just attribute that characteristic to the DCC. I don't give too much credit to the chassis. But here, it's just the chassis, and it's set up really well. Yeah, this engine also has plenty of torque from 2000 RPM. Oh, and we're back into some city limits, so let's slow down. Safety first, always. And let's put it back into normal mode. Yeah, I think that's enough of for the dynamic driving part. I think you get a good idea. I'm pretty happy. I'm fairly impressed with this. It does well in the city as well. It does well on rough surfaces. It can really excite you if you really wanted to, and if you set up the car right with the engine and the gearbox and the steering. It's also a good car to have fun on. It's a good car to take on long distances on the highway, to do road trips. Plenty of space in the back, plenty of space inside the cabin. And the last thing that we want to check, since we're coming out into this beach area, is if we can take it off-road a little bit. This does have the 4Motion, which is the 4-wheel drive system. It's a Haldex-based system, or just let's call it a coupling-based all-wheel drive system, since this is a transversely mounted engine, front-wheel drive, front engine layout. There's a propeller shaft connected to the transaxle at the front, which runs down here. And before it connects up with the rear differential, there is a electronic unit, which is a multi-plate clutch, which, depending on how much of slippage it allows and how engaged it is, will transfer up to 50% of the torque from the front to the back. Okay, so I'm gonna find a place where I can get off this road and get onto the rocky beach, and we'll see if I scrape something on the bottom or if it gets stuck in the sand. We'll test out this all-wheel drive system. Now, this car is by no means an off-roader. It's a soft-roader. It's a crossover. But we here in Autogear Fuel, we like to be thorough. So Jonas found this little dirt track and it looks fairly harmless. So let's check it out and see how it works. This car does come equipped with the 4Motion all-wheel drive system. This is a electronic clutch coupling based 4-wheel drive system, commonly known as the Haldex or the Borg-Warner coupling. So, because it's a transversely mounted front engine, front wheel drive layout, there's a propeller shaft connected to the transaxle, which runs down the center of the car towards the rear, where the rear differential on the rear axle is. And between those two, the propeller shaft and the differential, there is the electronic clutch. This clutch is a wet multi-plate clutch, and it engages in different varying amounts, and that transfers the torque from the front axle or the front drive to the rear, and thus it becomes all-wheel drive. So there is no central differential, there is no transfer case. It's just, you know, a on-demand all-wheel drive system. To engage it, we go down here to the off-road mode. Now it's in the 4-wheel drive mode all the time, up to speeds of up to, I think, 30 kilometers per hour. It's at slower speeds. Steering is very light, so you can make quick corrections. The engine automatic shutoff is disabled, so the engine is always running. It holds one gear for a longer time, so that you don't have to, it's not trying to change gears in the middle of when you're ambling around on the crawling on these rocks off-road. And finally, this car has about 2 centimeters higher ground clearance as compared to the regular Golf. All of these things should help it a little bit. So let's put it into drive and let's go. This car also has the standard suspension setup. It doesn't get the DCC, the dynamic chassis control, so the dampers are in the standard setting. But I can tell you that already it's very comfortable. It's not jarring on the inside. The suspension is soaking up these rocky surfaces and these dips very easily. Although this is a very loose gravel surface, it is has plenty of grip thanks to these large grippy tires and this all-wheel drive system. Like I said, the gearbox is holding it in D1 this whole time, so there's plenty of grip. So for situations like this car has no problem at all. Wait a minute. Oh my God. Jonas, do you think we can make it up this hill?
At least you should try.
Yeah, this is not the VW test track or anything. It's really just a random place that Jonas said, hey AJ, let's drive up here. And we did, and now we're stuck on this really steep hill. I don't think this car can make it. If it does, then it's a bona fide AJ certified off-roader, but I highly doubt this. This could end up becoming one of those silly viral videos on the internet. Two idiots crash a brand new T-Roc by doing something stupid. But I think we should just do it.
Let's go.
Okay, just to be on the safer side, I'm gonna turn on auto hold so that in case I do have to stop on this hill, hopefully it will save me. It's in four-wheel drive mode. In this four-wheel drive mode, I also have these views over here for the steering angle, which I really don't think that helps me. I mean, I can see what angle I have been putting on the steering wheel. I don't really need this. And it has a compass, so this is not really that useful. I think I'm going to take a bit of a run up because I'm honestly fairly scared about how this is going to go down. So I have Jonas standing outside. Stand by. Jonas, here we go. All right, well, cowabunga, dude. Oh, oh my goodness. Oh, wow, a lot of dirt and dust. That was just a piece of cake for this car. It just totally annihilated that hill. Didn't even blink, didn't even flinch. Okay. That was pretty cool that the car can go up that really steep hill. I might be pushing it, but what goes up has to come down. Now I can't leave the car here and walk back to the hotel or walk to the airport. I have to drive down. So let's take it back down, and now we can test out the hill descent control. So I'm going to inch forward. The auto hold is on, and I'm going to just make sure hill descent is on. Yes. Okay, and okay, let's just stick to the normal off-road mode. And hill descent control is activated. I see that there is a little symbol down there which shows that the hill descent control system is activated. This is fairly steep. Oh my God. Like a certain very popular auto journalist on a certain British television show once said, I'm in a car and I'm having a plane crash. Of course, this is not that vertical, but again, my feet are completely off the throttle and the brake. This car is using the 4Motion all-wheel drive system and the next-gen ABS and traction control system to brake the individual wheels, whichever are losing grip and traction, and it's able to maintain a steady descent, very controlled, very safe. This car doesn't even need me. It can do this on its own. I am actually pretty impressed with this car. I really am. I mean, it can do so many things. It can excite you on twisty, winding roads. It looks pretty cool, except for those really silly, rare fake exhaust tips. I mean, they're so far out in the corners of the car. I mean, how is that possible? It would have the exhaust pipes would have had to go through the rear wheel, and the front Pikachu, angry Pikachu face with those amber LED lights, which look like those cheeks on the face. Kind of, I can take it or leave it, but overall, I mean, it's got a fancy design. It's got enough space in the trunk. It's got good comfort, technology, fun on road, and fairly capable off-road. I mean, this is the maximum that you and I would ever really need it for, and it does it really well. The VW T-Roc starts at around 20,500 euros for the base entry-level model. But of course, you don't really want that, do you? You want the style with the contrasting roof color, or the sport with the more progressive steering rack and all the other upgrades in terms of wheel and LED lights, so on and so forth. And if you do pile up these options, you're looking at something around 30-35 euros or even higher. But I still think it offers a good value for money proposition. Compared to its stablemates, the Seat Ateca and the Skoda Karoq, the T-Roc has a very design-focused outlook. I think the design is something that is very youthful and lively. But it's not just a pretty face. It has the chassis and a very capable drivetrain to back it up. I mean, you guys clearly saw, it brought us up to here. And I really think that this car has the potential to be the king of the hill, quote unquote, in the compact crossover segment as well. I think the Nissan Qashqai should be worried about this car. Yes, some of the design elements might be a bit polarizing, like the Pikachu-like front cheeks with these amber lights, or the really oddly placed fake exhaust tips. I mean, there's no way that exhaust tips can be jutting out so far in the corner of the bumper unless they're coming through the rear wheel. Some of these quirks might not be to everybody's taste, but that's the point. It does something that's different and lively. Plus, there's some good technology, adaptive cruise control, the front assist, lane departure warning, all of these things, the standard is, I think, a very good idea as well. Overall, the VW T-Roc definitely impressed me today. I didn't know what to expect. Now it's got my hand all dirty, but I want to know what you guys think. So let me know, put it down in the comments below. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We always upload stories and pictures behind the scenes. And if you guys come and meet us, like we had the really great opportunity to meet a fellow Autogear Fuel community member here in Lisbon. So it's always fun to have more engagement. Check it out and let me know what you guys think. And I will see you guys next time.